Good evening. I'd like to call the Monday, June 14th, Hazlet Board of Education meeting to order. Scott McIntyre is absent with notice, and Mrs. Mateo, I'm sure, has a good excuse.
We just don't know what it is.
We just don't know what it is yet.
Missing and noticed.
Campaign.
She might be out campaigning, this is true. Correspondence?
Yes, we have a considerable amount of correspondence. We'll begin with the thank yous for the retirement. Jean and B. Enderly and Cindy Brown and Barbara Burke all sent us cards thanking us for the reception and the retirement. Thanks. We also have a note from Julie Southwell thanking us for the flowers sent for the funeral. She's a high school Spanish teacher. And we have Judy Wall, Raya custodian, had surgery. Sent us a little thank you there for the flowers. And a whole bunch of folks signed up on a card from the staff appreciation mugs that we sent to the bus drivers. And we have a letter from the Ingham School District considering this formal notification of the results of the June 7th Ingham election where we elected David Haar and Rudy Wilson for 2 6-year terms, one each, and a 2-year term for Mary Thadden. This is the official notification of the final results of that election. And we also have I guess that's all the letters were sent to me, but there's enough for everybody, for all the board members. A letter from Lamar Lemons of the House of Representatives having to do with the referendum to reverse the legislations having to do the public school takeover. So I'll pass those out accordingly. One for you, Kathy, and for me, and I guess some people the other way. There's 7 identical letters from that person. Also, and I'll pass this, I guess, to you, or did you already take it? The letter from the Michigan Association of School Boards for our dues for next year.
I think we'll take action on that the first meeting in July,
right.
Our organizational meeting.
Correct. And that's all I have in the way of correspondence.
That's it? Okay, thanks, Jeff. Items from the audience. This is the time in the agenda when if there's a member in the audience who'd like to speak to the board on a subject that's currently not on our agenda. That's your opportunity to do so. Seeing none, we'll move on. Student representative report. Tyler?
Thank you. A couple of weeks ago, after the Community Forum on Violence, the school's diversity club, DIG, held a student forum on the same subject. Anyone from the school could attend in an effort to make the discussion as diverse as possible. It was led by Dr. Barry Kaufman, a psychologist that works with children throughout the Tri-County area. There were a lot of interesting discussion at the meeting, and since then there has also been a follow-up meeting as they are trying to look for more solutions to school violence. So hopefully that will be fruitful. Hazlet sent a representative this year to HOBY, the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference at MSU. Each year a sophomore is selected, and this year it was Jolene Bear. She said that she had a great time. The Hazlet Math Rally team placed first in the league again for the 5th straight year. This year Hazlet sent 16 people, 4 of which won gold medals. Kristen Burnt in geometry, Mary Bramble in algebra 2, Andrea Hunt and Brad Whistle tied in calculus. The student council elected new officers and has also chosen the homecoming theme for next year's, which is fairy tales. And homecoming for next year is on October 1st, so we are already thinking of our float ideas. And we are also working on updating our Constitution, which I have some copies of that if you'd like to read it. It's kind of interesting. The choir's men's ensemble is going to Midwest. 50 schools apply and only 3 are selected to go, and that will be held at U of M next year. The band has selected its drum majors for next year. They are Emily Jo Heiler and Ben Hancock. At the middle school, the 8th grade Cedar Point trip was on May 14th, and the 8th grade dance was on May 22nd. Becca Macklem received the middle school's principal award for outstanding contribution to the community. The HMS Student Council has purchased hallway clocks Courtney Rizzo and her committee picked out the design, and then Mr. Mack's building and repairs class designed and built holders for the clocks. They're flat-face clocks that had, and then they kind of stick out like they'd be two-face. And then, so Mr. Mack's building and repair class built the holders. They designed and built them. And altogether, there are 12 clocks and so 6 holders. Auralia had its DARE graduation and 5th grade graduation on Wednesday. They had a nice program where students received awards, read essays, etc. The Auralia talent show was also on Friday. A tree was planted on the south side of Auralia by the National Arbor Day Foundation after one of their students won the national poster contest for the National Arbor Day Foundation. At Murphy, Kim Cook, the school's student council president, won the principal's award. Mr. Lepo spoke very highly of all her accomplishments. And also, each grade at Murphy has completed their annual end-of-the-year field trips that were paid for by the parent council. The 2nd grade went to the Detroit Zoo, 3rd grade to Huckleberry Railroad, 4th grade to Mackinac Island, and 5th grade to Greenfield Village. Also, I'd like to thank you for letting me to come here and speak to you. I've learned a lot, and I hope to come back next year.
Thank you, Tyler, and thanks for your service this year. I know you'll be back next year, I hope, and you've made some excellent reports, and you've kept the board pretty well informed. I think probably as well as we've ever been informed, so appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And have a nice summer.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. Do I get summer off too? Oh, I guess not.
Still have a nice summer.
No rest. Superintendent's report. Bob?
Yes, I have a number of things to report on. First of all, it is, of course, Monday, and this board meeting will be taped later in the week, but this is Monday, June 14th, so want to again announce to the community that today is our annual school election day, and the polls will remain open for another 50 minutes. So if you happen to be watching this broadcast and you have not voted, this would be one of the few times we would suggest that you walk away and not watch us and get to the polls and vote. There are 2 issues that the community will decide today, and that is we have one board vacancy position to fill. Incumbent Kathy Mateo is seeking re-election. Apparently she might be working on her behalf. She's unopposed, so I would think she could relax. But the other big issue is we are asking our voters to consider establishing a building and site millage. We're asking voters to approve a millage of 0.85 mils so that we can establish the building and site sinking fund, which will allow us to meet future building repair obligations. Any questions with the election? Okay, we should get the results, I would suspect, about 9:30 this evening. We have several groups that we wish to recognize tonight, and the first group that we would like to recognize is our outstanding Quiz Bowl team. The board wishes to salute the Quiz Bowl team and our coaches Jason Potter and Julie Southwell. They've had an outstanding season. They've had a number of accomplishments. They won the 56 teams participated in the WKAR Quizbusters tournament. And in that tournament, Hazlitt went 14-0 and won the championship. They also won the Capital Area Quiz Bowl Invitational. The team also won 2 Thumb B consortium tournaments. They competed in several big Detroit area teams where some of the largest schools in the state were competing, and they fared very well in those tournaments. And then the team went to the state competition, and they took 3rd place in the Class B division of the state tournament, losing only to Detroit Country Day, and actually lost their last match in sudden death. It was my privilege to be there, and they lost to Birmingham Brother Rice in just an exciting match. So they truly have had an outstanding season. The team also just today came back from a national competition where they competed in the National Academic Championships in Washington. I haven't heard the full report yet. Maybe we'll hear that tonight. But I would like to call on our 2 coaches, Jason Potter and Julie Southwell, and if they would meet me at the podium Perhaps they could talk a little bit about their season and introduce some of our players here that are with us this evening.
Do we have a team coming up?
Sure.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Josh Hausman would like to say a few words first before we.
Very good. Josh?
Okay. Well, on behalf of the team, we just like to thank the entire school board for supporting us throughout the whole year, letting us go to all these tournaments throughout the year. We've gone to quite a number of tournaments. We've played about 90 games this year. And we also would like to thank you for sending us to the national tournament. We had a lot of fun, and we thought we really represented Hazlet well and got our name out there a little bit throughout the top schools in the nation. And we had a lot of fun, and we hope that you'll support us in future years as well.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, let me introduce some of the players to you here, quite a lineup. Josh Hausman, of course.
Could you do that at Mike, Julie,
I'm
so
sorry,
we
sure,
can cross
sure. Can
Sure.
you see them? Okay, Josh Hausman, Matt Sikarsky, Dan Nortman, Mary Bramble, Jeff Warwick, Liz Hall, Stephanie Teisch McGoldrick, CJ DeFord, Aaron Hellum, Laura Morgan, and Kevin Dillman.
Very good.
There were 68 teams there at the tournament, and they were from every part of the country. There were teams from California, there were teams from Shreveport, Louisiana, from several teams from Texas, many from South Carolina, New York, New Jersey, just about any state, several from Illinois, Chicago, and so on, many prep schools, private schools, and public schools. And we felt that we felt a little bit concerned, or at least I did, because I didn't know what the level of competition would be. But I spoke to the Detroit Country Day coach at the state tournaments, asking him, because I had known that they'd been there before, and he said, we should do very well, because the level of competition here in the state of Michigan is as high as anywhere. And as it turned out, that's the way it was. We were not, even though we won about half of our games, we finished among the top 30 or so out of the 68 teams. We don't know the exact finish right now. But we were in every game, and usually only the two games that we lost were only by a couple of questions right towards the end. The kids did a very good job. Everywhere we went, people were impressed with the students' behavior. The flight attendant on the plane coming back complimented us with, what a good group of students that we had with us. And so they were really a credit to Hazlet.
We've always been very, very proud of our Quiz Bowl team. I know we've have won 2 former state championships. I know during your tenure too, back when you were working with Stan Hicks, Mr. Potter, and we've just had a very, very rich tradition of success with our Quiz Bowl team. And so we're closing out just an outstanding season. And it saddens us a little bit in that we've learned that Mr. Potter, or Coach Potter, has announced his retirement from Quiz Bowl. Jason has been just an outstanding coach for 10 years, and we're going to miss him. And so on behalf of the Board of Education, we'd like to present you something to Jason. We thank you for your many years of service with our Quiz Bowl team. Thank you.
Jason, this is a real pleasure for me to be able to present you with this plaque recognizing your 10 years of outstanding service to the Quiz Bowl teams. And I don't know how many students that would be, but I'm certain it's over 100 students in these 10 years that have benefited from your leadership. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to present this plaque to you. To Jason Potter, Outstanding Service Award, Quiz Bowl Coach, 1989 to 1999, in recognition of your outstanding achievements and contributions to the Hazlet Quiz Bowl team. May your record and personal performance serve as a standard for all professionals who endeavor to facilitate student learning. In addition, on the plaque, we've listed the 1998-1999 Quiz Bowl season record, WKAR Quizbusters champions, Capital Area Quiz Bowl Invitational champions, Thumb Beat Consortium Tournament champions, third place finish in the Michigan Academic Quiz Bowl Championship, and certainly a fine representation in Washington, D.C. So congratulations and thank you.
Just bear with us just for a moment. We'd like to capture this moment with just a couple pictures. So, and students, stay right here because we'd like to get you in some of these pictures too. But first, if we could get maybe the 4 of us.
Okay, sure.
Sure.
All right.
Shoot the target.
He's good with the camera.
Brian does double duty.
Just push the button.
It's a little slow.
Could we ask the students to come right kind of here in front of the board table? Just kind of center around there, and we'll have Mr. Potter get in front of you and also get a picture. Is that all right?
Guys are hiding. That's not gonna help.
How about sliding over a little bit?
Come on, girls, you have to get in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, shorter people in front.
Somebody's hiding this back. I just got back today.
We're literally off the airplane, right, just in an hour or so ago.
Well, look refreshed.
Okay.
There you go. That's great. Thank you.
And thanks, students, for coming this evening. We appreciate it. Continued success. We also have a couple guests with us this evening, and I'd actually like to turn the floor over to them. And if may I introduce to you Bill McCullough from AAA of Michigan, the Lansing branch manager, and also our Meridian Township Police Chief, Mr. Gary Gibbons. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come tonight, Mr. Superintendent and members of the board. In mid-April, AAA Michigan put the gauntlet down, if you will, and asked Hazlitt High School if they would be willing to enter a challenge with Williamston High School on trying to increase seatbelt usage. And we came out unannounced at the high school one morning in mid-April, and with the help of Chief Gibbons and Officer Rambo, we did a count of how many of the students, faculty, and parents were wearing their seatbelts. And we found that 82% of the front seat occupants were wearing seatbelts on that mid-April morning, which was very good. We were surprised. Williamston only hit 67%, so Hazlitt had quite a lead. And then we put some posters out. Chief Gibbons has one there. The schools had posters. We asked local businesses if they would be willing to donate some prizes so that we could kind of give an incentive to the students to increase their seatbelt usage, and told them that we would be back unannounced sometime in the future for a second recount. It was a lot of fun because the community newspapers got involved too, and if you happen to read that, the two reporters that cover the beat in Williamston and Hazlitt actually put a lunch on it. And so we were trying to improve seatbelt usage in the schools, raise awareness of the importance of wearing seatbelts. So we came back in mid-May and did a second recount and found that the Hazlitt students had increased seatbelt usage from 82% to 90%, and that the Williamston students had also increased from 67% but to 77%. The 90% is one of the highest seatbelt usage that we've charted anywhere in the state. So you should be proud of the students, faculty, and parents in Hazlet. We really feel that what we set out to accomplish happened. And that morning when we went back out for the recount, Chief Gibbons, Officer Rambo had an opportunity to pass out tickets in the parking lot. They were raffle tickets, they weren't the other kind. And each student who was wearing a seatbelt was given a raffle ticket to enter into the raffle. And we had some 23 businesses donate over 200 prizes. We split the prizes between the two schools. So I really want to congratulate you, and I really want to congratulate Mike Duda and Bob Cavera from the high school for their support of the program. And if they're here, I'd like them to come up and have the chief. Anything you want to say, Gary?
No, I just want to say thanks to the school staff as well as for assisting us with this and supporting us, because we think the safety of the students and the staff is very important. And this certainly speaks well of that, so thank you.
So I have a couple things to give, and Gary can help me.
I'd like Tyler
Okay.
to join us as well. He's part of the
Great.
student council, and he's had an integral part.
All right. This is the Great Safety Belt Challenge in recognition and appreciation for outstanding safety belt use by Hazlet High School. We urge all students to continue the safety habit by buckling up, presented by AAA Michigan in 1999. Mike? Okay, and we've got one more thing. And the winning school receives a Polaroid camera and some film from one of the sponsors, and you can use that for school newspaper or whatever that you like.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Had to give it back, Tyler.
Bill, we appreciate the leadership that AAA's put into this, and we appreciate the education that you're providing our students. This is outstanding, and Chief, we always appreciate your assistance. Thank you. Great project.
Thank you.
Moving along with another very positive thing. It's our privilege this evening, and I suspect we may be a little late for this, but it's really never too late. But it's our privilege this evening to salute 3 outstanding athletes from our school district: Logan Barnhart, Derek Johnson, and Matt Gobasi. And if I may I turn it over to Coach Otluski or Jamie, who would be appropriate?
Unfortunately, one of our two student athletes, Derek Johnson's not here, but what I want to do is just talk a little bit about each student, kind of what they are planning to do in the fall. Logan's planning either attending Grand Valley State University in the fall, play football, or at Olivet College. And so he was involved in track this past spring, and so we look forward to having him have some success, this past fall. He was the honor roll. He was the offensive player of the year for the Lansing State Journal. He was first team Detroit News All-State as a running back, and so this past fall, with all his success, both he and Derek were a big part of that. So he's one of the ones I'd like to honor. The other one is Derek Johnson. He's going to attend and play football at the University of Hawaii, and so we look forward to that. It's a long way away, but he's involved in a lot of different things at the school, from the diversity committee to the sportsmanship summit between us here at Hazlet and DeWitt this past year. He hosted a student from Elsa State High School in our exchange with the students from out west, and so he's involved with a number of different things, and so we look forward to a lot of success out at the University of Hawaii. And I know Mike Duda and I talked about he can send us some tickets at any time. We'll be more than happy to come out and take a look at them. So, but it's been a great honor coaching these two fine young men, and it's kind of sad to see him go, but we started, in fact, this past afternoon working towards building towards next year's team. So we're kind of changing gears, but at the same time, it's nice to honor these two guys.
Okay. Coach, I've got just a couple things that I would add that's right in front of me. Of course, what a tremendous football season we had this year, and we've talked about it, and it's something that I'm sure we'll never forget, the fabulous football season we had this year. And of course, Logan and Derek was such a big part of that team, provided some great leadership. But just for the record, we've had a practice as a Board of Education of recognizing all state recipients, and that's why we're recognizing these 3 young men tonight. But we have listed that Logan was all-state first team Detroit Free Press. Offensive Player of the Year, Lansing State Journal, and also All-Area Dream Team Offense for Lansing State Journal. And then for Derek, All-State First Team, also Detroit Free Press. He also represented us as a participant in the East-West All-Star Game for the Michigan High School Coaches Association, Football Coaches Association. And then he also was an All-Area Dream Team Offensive Player for the Lansing State Journal. So, you have something.
I've got something here.
And while you're going up there, I'd also like to introduce Mr. Barnhart. He's here tonight. We appreciate it. Nice to see you.
And Johnsons are here also.
Oh, the Johnsons are here.
Johnsons
Oh, I see, okay.
Good.
Welcome.
We've got two plaques here, one for Logan and one for Derek. We'll just sort of pass to the student, and then they'll have to pass to Mr. Gent, because eventually these things have to hang in the school because of High School Athletic Association rules. But we're still gonna recognize you. Logan Barnhart, football, 1998, All-State First Team, and I know I'm repeating myself. Detroit News Class B/BB, Offensive Player of the Year, Lansing State Journal. All-Area Dream Team Offense, Lansing State Journal. The Hazlet Board of Education, Logan, salute your athletic accomplishments and your team's second place finish in the Michigan High School Athletic Association's BB Football Championship. Your perseverance for excellence and your dedication to your school and community are admired and respected. May your athletic record serve as a guide to all Hazlet students today and in the future. Congratulations. Thank you very much. And for Derek Johnson, football, 1998, All-State First Team, Detroit Free Press, East-West All-Star Game participant, Michigan High School Football Coaches Association, All-Area Dream Team Offense, Lansing State Journal. Once again, the Hazlet Board of Education salutes Derek, his athletic accomplishments, and your team's second place finish in the Michigan High School Athletic Association's BB Football Championship at the Silver Dome. Your perseverance for excellence and your dedication to your school and community are admired and respected. May your athletic record serve as a guide to all Hazlet students today and in the future. Congratulations.
Selfishly, I want to get one picture here with just you and I, right?
And I think Jamie will come up and introduce Mac.
Todd was planning on being here tonight, and we realized that his banquet, the girls' soccer banquet, was tonight. He was going to try to get over between the banquet and the awards, but we couldn't work that out. It's my pleasure to introduce Mac, because when I became athletic director, soccer was brand new in Hazlet. We were just starting our first varsity team about 6 years ago, and we weren't very successful, but we were trying very hard, and Lee Kyle was our coach, and we were going through some long, hard seasons. And then about 4 years ago, Mac and some of his friends showed up, and things started to change drastically. I'm not an expert on soccer, but I know when Mac's on the field, a lot of things happen, and they're very good when they happen. He's been fun to watch. He's been fun to watch as an athlete. As an athletic director, it's been my pleasure to watch Mac come back this year as a senior and help the basketball team, and then came out for track this year and did long jump and did some sprints for us. So he's not just a one-sport athlete. Next fall, Mac plans on going back to South Africa and attending Vince University in South Africa and playing soccer, I hope. Okay, all right. Mac's a great guy, so it's my pleasure to introduce Mac Nabasi.
Mac, it's my pleasure to award this plaque to you. Mac Nabasi, soccer, 1998. All-State First Team, junior year, Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association. All-State Second Team, senior year, Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association. All-Area Dream Team, and junior and senior years, Lansing State Journal. The Hazlet Board of Education salutes your athletic accomplishments. Your perseverance for excellence and your dedication to your school and community are admired and respected. May your athletic record serve as a guide to all Hazlet students today and in the future. Congratulations. Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Max Guardians for being here too. Welcome. Now, these plaques that we've presented will be in our showcases for many, many years to come. So again, we appreciate it, and thank you for representing Hazlet so well. We're real proud of this. Okay, moving along, also wish to recognize some of our own. And boy, I'd like to just salute our principals for just an outstanding job with all of the many, many end-of-the-year school activities. And so wish to congratulate Mr. Duda and the entire high school staff. And you know, also our parent volunteers. We have so much volunteerism involved in so many things at the end of the year, and so many parents put so much work into the activities to really make them special for our kids. So when we think of the end of the year, I'm speaking of the honors night, senior recognition night, the prom, the baccalaureate, the all-night party, commencement, and I just think all of them were very, very successful. This is Mr. Duda's first year as principal, heading all those projects up, and I think he just did an excellent job. So we really appreciate that. Job well done, Mike, and please pass along our best regards to the entire staff. And also the students, because they certainly behaved very, very well, and I think as a result of that good behavior, it was really a dignified endeavor, all of them. And then also the Meridian High School staff. They always put on a tremendous heartwarming kind of graduation every year, and I think this year we had 26 students graduate from Meridian High School, and the commencement was just outstanding. I know this year they also had a successful prom that the students enjoyed. And so, Maria, to all of your people, the staff and the students alike, we appreciate all that you did. Nice job. And then, no, not to close, just a couple more things. Also would like to alert the board that we have 2 action items this evening. Very important. And I'm proud to recommend to the board that later in the agenda, we're asking that you approve the appointment of Sharon Jones as Assistant Superintendent. Sharon has provided the district with 28 years of service as a teacher and principal of the Wilkshire Early Childhood Center. I know we conducted a very aggressive search for a new assistant superintendent. We received a fairly large number of applicants. We received applicants from all over the state of Michigan and even a couple from outside the state. And after thoroughly reviewing all of the applicants, we thought certainly the very best was right here in Hazlet in the way of Sharon Jones. I think the qualities that we seek in our assistant superintendent, certainly she possesses. Sharon is very knowledgeable. She's one of the most hard-working persons I've ever had the privilege to work with. I think Sharon's an outstanding communicator. Sharon's very, very enthusiastic about education, and if you ever go to Wilkshire Early Childhood Center, believe me, there's a lot of enthusiasm in that building, and I think it greatly comes from Sharon's enthusiasm. And then maybe most important, the quality that we're looking for in every school position is one's love for children, and certainly Sharon possesses a great deal of love for all students. And I think she's just going to be an outstanding assistant superintendent. We look forward to her continued leadership, and if the board accepts this recommendation, Sharon would start this July 1st. So with that, Sharon, could I ask you just to maybe say a couple words? Or many words.
This is a test.
This is not an interview, Sharon. You've
Well, I
done
don't know
that.
how well I'll communicate tonight. But certainly I want to thank Bob and the board for having confidence in me, and I'm very excited about this opportunity to lead the district in a different way. So I'm looking very much forward to July 1. It's with mixed emotions, of course, that I leave Wilkshire Early Childhood Center, but I'm confident that we will find an excellent replacement. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Sharon. And Sharon's going to be presenting later in our agenda. And then one last item, and this is just an announcement that On behalf of the Board of Education, I've accepted a number of resignations that I wish to share with you tonight. I've accepted the resignation of Lainey Alba Mitchell, who has been a music teacher for 3 years at Wilkshire and just an outstanding teacher, and we're going to miss Lainey. Margie Culver, just very recently submitted a resignation after 6 years of service. She was most recently a middle school media specialist, but also for most of her tenure here in Hazlet, worked both at the middle school and high school. So we're going to miss Margie. She's accepted a position up at Petoskey. Or Charlottesville, I'm sorry, that's right. Also Nancy Reiser. Nancy Reiser is one of our real popular bus drivers, and she has worked for us for 11 years, and she's just been a real favorite of many, many students. And she's one of those people we point to of a person who works in what we might call the support staff, and yet she's a real teacher and just an outstanding person. So we're going to miss Nancy. She's going to settle in South Carolina. Debbie Cardona submitted her resignation. She has served as a library coordinator at the middle school for 5 years, and she's moving to the Grand Rapids area with her husband Steve, and we'll miss Debbie. She's been a great school worker. Peter Larson from Meridian High School has been a teacher there for 4 years, and we wish the best for Peter. And then lastly, Kristen Bartley, who has served a little less than a year here, but she's worked in the Central Administration Office as our Accounts Payable Clerk. And Kristen's been a good worker. She just recently completed her degree and moving to a position which will offer her more responsibility. So to all these individuals, we wish them well and we thank them for their service. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Good report. Next item on the agenda is a Board of Education public hearing. Dave Martell, I guess, do you run this hearing or you don't run the hearing? Okay, I think you do, Dave. I know you can open and close the hearing.
Well, the hearing is what we need to do by law is for our truth and taxation requirements. And it's a chance for the public to come and comment on our budget, to talk about things that they want to see addressed or not addressed. But the legal requirement is for us to offer this period of time, and if there are no people in the audience that would like to address any issues, at a minimum, we do need to discuss the amount of tax that we'll be levying on properties in Hazlet. So I'll go ahead and mention that, and if there are other comments, then we could go with those and then eventually close it. But what we, as a district, will be levying this next year is the same as we have in the past. For operating mills, 18 mills on non-homestead and non-qualifying agricultural property. We will be levying no mills on homestead, are basically the homeowners of the district, and for operating mills. And then for debt, we will continue our 7.63 mills. And if the election today is positive on the sinking fund proposal, then it would be an additional 0.85 mils for that. But the main focus of the hearing here is the operating mills. And we will also later in the meeting be making a formal presentation on the budget to the board.
So we'll see it in a little while. I said we'll see it a little while
Any
later.
questions, any comment, public comment? Seeing none, we met our obligation. Thank you. Discussion items. We've got 5 discussion items tonight. And the first is HCC Language Arts Report. And Sharon Jones and Faith Stevens are here to report.
We're going to need the overhead projector. I'm going to introduce Faith, who's going to do the important sharing of this curriculum with you this evening. This is the second year of the HAZA Coordinating Council's goal for language arts, and we were looking specifically at writing for this year. And one of the things we needed to concentrate on was to add specificity to this writing goal. We had what we thought was a good writing program, but each grade level really did not have in place very specific things that they knew they needed to master or review or introduce. And so for this past year, the committee has met on numerous occasions to put together a very specific curriculum. And what you have in front of you in that notebook is this year-long task that we have embarked on. And we're pretty excited about it. Next year, we will then be implementing this curriculum, and what Faith is also passing around is one of the materials that our teachers will be using. It's called Right Source, and it's available for all grade levels. And the money has been allocated for us to purchase these materials for grades 1 through 12 to implement writing. Faith?
Thank you, Sharon. I'll just highlight a few things that you see in the notebook before I start. I'll share a little story with you. Always when we're dealing with staff development, we have to deal with the change process. And so I think this story will kind of illustrate what we're trying to inspire staff and parents and so on to deal with. And this is a story about the San Diego Zoo. And not too long ago, they expected a new arrival, an exotic bear. And so they were preparing a special environment so that the bear would have a similar habitat to what its natural environment might be. But unfortunately, the bear arrived before the environment was ready. So they left it sedated in its traveling cage, and they set that in the middle of the environment while they continued to work. And the bear came to, woke from its sedation, and all of these workers were working around it. And what it did is it stood up and stretched, looked around, and began to pace. And it went to the edge of the cage, stood up and roared, and paced back to the right, and stood up and roared when it got there, and it continued. And so the workers realized that the bear was in distress, so they hired more workers to hurry the process along. And so day 2, day 3, day 4, the bear is walking, pacing its cage, and when it gets to the edge, it stands up and roars. And so they hire, and so this goes on day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and finally, they're ready to release the bear into its environment. So it is once again sedated, and when it comes to, the cage is gone, and it's looking around, and the environment has a cave for it, a pool of water, some nice trees to scrape, and in front is just a moat and a low fence so that people can look at the natural environment. What does the bear do when it wakes up? It proceeds to pace to the edge of where the cage stood, stand up and roar, turn around and pace to the other side, stand up and roar. And so this story is basically to illustrate that we have to keep in mind that we have mental restrictions sometimes that hamper our change process. And we want to inspire staff to do away with the mental restrictions that we're dealing with and take a look at our philosophy. And so this represents a revision of what we've done. And I know that when you see philosophy, a lot of people groan and who wants to deal with those really heavy-duty statements. But it's important that we operate from a philosophical base. That's clear enough from that. And so again, we're still emphasizing that reading and writing are definitely interrelated, and that they're a process that students learn to read more proficiently by writing and to write more proficiently by reading, and that it's an interconnected process. It's a complex process where the author moves back and forth between the various stages of the process, rehearsing, drafting, revising, editing, and it draws on the child or the author's own personal experiences. It requires critical thinking and problem solving, and that their students need to write for real purposes, for varied audiences, not just fill in worksheets or do the kinds of things that we might have had to do when we were in school. That they develop fluency through regular chances to write, ample writing time, having constructive response from peers and teachers, the opportunity to choose. Choice is very, very important. And that writing conventions are taught through that, through the opportunity to write more frequently. So grammar and word usage and punctuation, all of the rules, if you will, of writing apply and are drawn in as the child is using them for his real audience. Since writing is all about communicating and making yourself understood, you want to make sure that you follow the conventions of writing. By the same token, then, we're looking at handwriting, and of course, legibility is the key focus here. That is uniform throughout the district, and hopefully they're using handwriting. Of course, they need some element of practice in the initial instruction, but that the more they have a chance to write and actually use it, the more it becomes easier for them. And then an effective spelling program too, looking at the stages of development for the child, and that they're learning to spell because they want to communicate, they want their reader to understand the message, and so that it's integrated. And basically then, that's our philosophy, and looking at, we've divided or emphasized 4 goals. First of all, the steps of the writing process: pre-writing, drafting, revising, editing, and publishing. And then goal 2 would involve the genre or the type of writing, that we're trying to make sure that if a student is with us in kindergarten through 12th grade, that they have instruction in the various types of writing, that no one area is overemphasized or by the same token neglected. So we've developed a scope and sequence with that. Goal 3, that the student would use appropriate writing conventions in the sentence and paragraph construction, mechanics, which include punctuation and capitalization, grammar, and accurate word usage and spelling. And then goal 4 addresses handwriting, and then you'll see, and I won't go through all of them, but you'll see, for example, here how we have set up the notebook so that you see kindergarten through high school, and this would be the goal 2, which is the part of goal 2, writing for a variety of the genre for different purposes and audiences, and then personal writing, expository writing, creative writing, various types. The asterisk indicates with an I when it is first introduced, and then it is reviewed or reinforced, and then an M indicates mastery. That would be at this point in the child's schooling. We would hope that by that time that they have mastered it. And then you'll see an area where it's then continued and refreshed as needed, but by that time it's just on an individual basis if you have someone who needs to be retaught in a certain area. And so we've tried to be very specific about which grade level is responsible for introducing it and reviewing and mastering and so on, all the way through the various goals that we have set up. And so, for example, spelling, these things are pretty slippery here, or this particular one happens to be grammar, and then you'll see that it is continued and so on, all the way through all of the various parts. Spelling, we've actually delineated where certain spelling concepts are taught, so that we're really quite clear when structural rules and so on happen. And then looking at another facet of that would be the assessment. Since we want to make sure that our students are acquiring these skills, they do, and we have just completed the district-wide assessment. Each grade level has a particular type of writing with some minimum requirements, and these are then scored by the other teachers. They get together and we do a holistic scoring. The results come back to the teacher and to the child, and then it is stored in the K-12 Common Writings folder, which follows them all the way up through, and upon graduation, one of the things things that they are presented with is their portfolio of writing from all 12 grades, which is kind of special. So we have continued with that. And then, of course, we have the Michigan assessment, the MEP, 5th, 8th, and 11th grades with high school test. And to support all of those things, we have reviewed various samples. We held a materials fair at Wilkshire and held it open certain afternoons. The teachers could go over at whichever day was most convenient for them, and we had a criteria sheet. And they could go around and take a look at all of the various materials with those specific criteria in mind. And then we had them turn in their sheets, and we tallied up the results and came up with our most popular selection, the right source, which is a handbook for teachers. We will be purchasing or have purchased mini sets for classrooms so that the teachers will have 15 in their classroom to refer to and share when students have a specific need. And so in each of the goals, we'll see to understand the steps of the writing process, and then we purchase materials at middle school and high school. In grades K-5, those are handled pretty much by the teacher instruction at this point. Goal 3, we see that looking at writing conventions, punctuation, and so on. We have daily oral language and daily oral language plus. We have the integrated spelling, the core word list, and the right source materials that are going to be used specifically to support the genre and the writing process. Handwriting, we're using Zaner Bloser, and spelling is a program that we have modified. It was originally developed by Sharon Jones and Carol Gable, and we have revised that and added in some other research that we looked at. So that's, in a nutshell, the kinds of things that we've done. Do you have any questions?
How long did this take?
It's like forever. Well, we really began last year, and we continued them throughout, having several staff members who were part of the original process in 1990 when we really made our major change. They were a little overwhelmed with, no, not again. But really, we took it in chunks and steps and worked through it. We revised what we had, looked at really what the latest research was. So, pretty pleased with it.
We really started this a year ago. This is the second year, and we've got one more year on this goal.
Next year we take on reading.
But we knew we needed to add specificity. That our one that we did in 1990 was way too general after having lived with it for a while. And so we knew the target, and it was a better target. And Faith and Sharon have just worked diligently on being kind of taskmasters, which is what they had to do in order to get this accomplished.
One thing you'll notice too that's a little bit different, I went over the generic things in the front, the K-12 idea, but if we were, say, having a brand new grade 2 teacher, it is also presented later in your notebook. These will be shared with staff next fall. In addition with staff development, we're looking at presenters and some assistance in how to use the materials and what tools they have at their fingertips. But also they would get their material by the grade level. So goal 1, what am I responsible for if I'm a second grade teacher? Goal 2, goal 3, goal 4. So that they can look at the big picture and what comes before me and what comes after, but also what exactly do I need to teach? So that was what's
The source materials here, is all of that just for each teacher or some of that for the students?
The handbook is what the students will have, and then the other resources that you see are things that are there for the teachers if they want to do a mini lesson on a particular concept. It's
For
there.
example, that's a grade 4 or 5.
Right.
So we have materials like that for everyone in the district? I mean,
Second
high school?
through 5th grade. Well, and middle school and high school have resources also. Middle school uses the Right Source 2000, which is the middle school version of that, and then the high school has Writers Inc. INC for incorporated. And then first grade, kindergarten is using their own teacher-created materials. First grade has the teacher resource box. They didn't buy student handbooks yet.
So some of those materials are already in the district.
Well, they've just arrived. Actually, they're waiting to be stamped and distributed next fall. But the middle school and the high school had them in place. The middle school and high school have purchased other materials, but the teachers each had one copy of this in the past, but they didn't ever have the mini sets for the children, and they didn't have all the other resources. And also I passed around, we found the transparencies that actually take the children through the writing process, the steps, and there are some models there and how to revise and so on. That would be helpful as well.
How much of this, if any, is tied into the computer things that we have, particularly in the elementary, where I know in visiting something, they use some of this to facilitate both reading and writing.
Well,
Is this particular program, is this tied to that at all?
well, I wouldn't
Supplement.
necessarily have a computer disc or a CD or anything like that, but certainly the kinds of things that, if you're working on a writing genre, a letter, or whatever it might be, personal narrative, they certainly apply that in the computer lab and all of the technology kinds of terminology that they need.
Thanks.
First of all, let me just say this looks like an incredible tool. I mean, I would think you have to have put countless hours into this, but I just wanted to comment that it's going to probably be very well used. I can see how clear it would make things for people, and that's got to be very helpful. And then I have a really, really probably dumb question. I apologize in advance, but I can't resist asking it. Why do we no longer require cursive writing from kids?
Well, actually,
We do.
if you look at the
I mean, we
requirements there,
require
we do.
them learning it.
If you're talking about by the time they get to secondary, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? At that point, we have, it's a fine line you walk between personal voice and the child's expression. We have certainly provided all of the instruction. We hope that they will implement that, and, I guess it's called pick your battles at the secondary.
Yeah. I couldn't probably fight one way or the other. I just was curious because I know in my olden days, we had to write cursive. Nobody would accept anything printed, and now it looks like.
Well, you'll find lots of, the whole spectrum of arguments that, it's a computer age and they're using keyboarding anyway.
That's
and
true.
They only need to know how to sign their name and that kind of thing. I mean, so you'll see arguments
Yeah.
for it. We really should hold them to it because nobody can, their handwriting is illegible and all this as well. I know in middle school it's such an experimental time when they make hearts to dot their I's and all the slant this way today and that way tomorrow, and they experiment with all of those things. So hopefully it's internalized and each one has developed its own style.
Okay, I was just curious if there was some special thought process.
Well, I
on
think
it.
email will soon replace personal thank you notes.
Oh, I'm sure you're right.
Just so you know, we did in January devote the in-service at elementary to the writing curriculum. And all our elementary classroom teachers went through their goals and looked carefully to see whether the scope and sequence made sense to them. And there was a little change. Oh, yes, we can master that. Oh, no, we're going to give that to the next grade, and vice versa. So classroom teachers at all grade levels have had an opportunity to look very carefully at this, and they have bought into the level of specificity. So we feel pretty good about being able to implement in the fall.
Phil, you had a question?
Well, yeah. Certainly this is, like Bev said, this has got to be easier to set up evaluation and assessment when you have very specific. Under genre, I'm still, my pet thing has always been that the majority of reading and writing after they leave school is in the area of technical reading and writing. And you could very well put this under other forms of genre, but it's compelling that the students know how to write technically. That means how to explain, to use a software program and outline steps rather than long paragraphs, and be able to explain that. Was any consideration to giving to that, separate out that as a separate genre? I can tell you that Daggett's new report's going to come out on the 20th. I spent the last week with him, and it shows the gap is even wider in reading and writing from what they have to use in the real world and what they learn in school, and he'll get a lot of press on that. So we need to be prepared to consider that. But would you give thought to technical reading and writing?
Only in the area of report writing, not in what you're referring to. I think we're still very heavily concentrating on passing the MEP, and that's not what we see presently in the MEP. So the children, our students have to be able to write persuasively and expository pieces.
Then if we're going to meet, then the one thing that I also want about, because I have a real problem with the kids in college doing this, is writing in math. Not doing math, but writing, taking math, like percentages, and explaining them. They can't do it. Now, are we encouraging that anywhere? I mean, where are you overlapping with the math and in there? Because means, and that's again where most of the jobs are going to. Whether, I don't care where you're working now, you're explaining numbers, whether it's TQM, whether it's marketing surveys, what have you. It's just entrenched in almost every job now is to process and explain numbers. And I don't see students really struggle with that. To take numbers they calculate and then try to explain what it means.
Certainly, through math learning logs, students are asked to explain that. I would say that varies according to what the grade level and where they are, but by 2002, the MEP will have constructed response items when it's revised in math as well as science and social studies. So the constructive response will be to take a look at a problem and explain, write sentences and explain what they're having to do. And as soon as you see the MEP and that kind of an assessment, you'll see a greater concern on the part of students and staff to be able to be successful with that. And I think we certainly collaborate with the math department in those kinds of things. It's there now. It's probably not as formalized as we might like.
We've really hit persuasive writing heavily because that's part of the social studies MEP. So this really reflects social studies and writing. And as math comes on the horizon, you'll see us make those changes as well.
Will that be additional kinds of writing in addition to these, or does some of this, as MEP changes, does some of this drop off? And
I don't see this dropping off.
Okay,
I
so
see
now
it
it's-
add-on, and I see it being more inclusive in math.
the plate becomes a little fuller.
Right now, it's right here. It's in the journaling idea, the learning
So-
log, kinds of things where they have to explain, how did you solve this problem? Or how would you, what do percents mean, or whatever the question might be, it's done that way right now. So it's up to you in this category.
Yes.
We could certainly
Can
flesh
also-
that out and make it address real specific.
Would probably also come in explanatory writing under the expository areas, explaining how something works and how it goes together and how you solve the problem.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Faith. Sharon? Excellent. I assume you want these books back? Yeah. Oh, that's too bad.
Unless you really want them.
I need 4 books. Appreciate it, though. Got everything? Okay, thank you. Next is an out-of-state field trip request from the choir group, and we have Eric Wangeman here and Kim Carnes from the Boosters Group.
Thanks for allowing us to address you this evening.
Thank you.
We've already spoken with the policy committee, and hopefully at this point you've received packets which highlight the itinerary of our proposed trip and the details surrounding that. If I can just take, excuse me, a minute of your time to offer a couple of different things, some additions and some changes actually. The first one is that we're targeting hopefully May 6th, 7th, and 8th for the trip dates, which are Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And Mr. Gent has already been able to successfully move some of the athletic events for students that want to participate in both, particularly softball and baseball. The second one is that this year's trip is really a education-based trip as opposed to performance-based. In the past, the choir trips have all involved participating in some sort of festival where the students were rated, and that's always been a really nice a way to go for the trip, and the students learn a lot from working with professionals. This year we hope to next year we're hoping to have the students work with the professionals, but not in a rating-based situation. We hope to have the students perform, and those performance opportunities are listed for you in your packets. But we don't want it to be the essence of the trip. In doing that, we feel that that almost says to some students, you really are required to go, and we don't want any student to feel that they're required to go on the trip if they don't want to. And the other thing that this allows us to do is really to change the way that we address the personnel of the trip. In the past, we've said concert choir members only should travel. This year, for next year, we've got many students who are juniors and seniors who have been in the choral program for a number of years that are looking forward to moving up into the choral program and would like to travel. And because not all of them will be in concert choir next year, we thought that it was better to say any student in the choral program who is a junior or a senior who wants to travel can travel on this trip. Freshmen and sophomore students will then have their opportunity to travel in future years, hopefully. And that helps diminish if students are traveling a little less in their 4 years. That helps families to budget and to plan on traveling. So those are kind of the important things that I wanted to point out to you. And just here to take any questions if you have any.
Question?
I probably should say that when the Policy and Personnel Committee met, that Kim and Eric both came, and the committee did feel that we wanted to recommend that this be approved. We went over the plans and their budgeting and so forth, and we were all very impressed with it.
Jeff?
I've sort of been involved on the other side too, because I'm on the group, the parent group. But one of the things I want to compliment you on is the fact that you're bringing it to us so early. I know in the past, sometimes we didn't get these things until fall, and that puts pressure both on you and sometimes on the student. This gives everybody a good year to think about it and plan for it, especially with the cost that's involved here. I think that's a good move. It helps the board too to be able to think ahead and plan for these things.
Well, that was our goal. We've sent students would be receiving a letter, or should be receiving a letter very shortly, informing them that we could be traveling and how to start saving now, and that was our goal, is to give them enough time.
Oh, just one more comment. I just wanted to personally thank Kim for doing such a great job this year of running the parent group and really keeping us on our toes and getting things well organized for all of our events, not just this particular event. But thanks, Kim.
Let me ask a question about preparation. In the past, when you've been going really for competition, intense, a lot of preparation, this time, what do you foresee?
Well, our goal is to have every student who travels perform. They might not all perform. Generally, the performances that we would have would be non-competition based. So, for instance, when we perform at the Statue of Liberty, what we would have happen, as I'm preparing all the students, we generally do combined works throughout the year. So we'll prepare different works throughout the year. When we go on the trip, all students would be able to perform in the combined works, and then one of the smaller groups would also perform, or the students that participate in a smaller group. So we could still have a good source of literature to perform for an audience, and every student would be able to perform at least 2 or 3 pieces.
Any other questions?
Just to comment, one thing the committee didn't say, that we thought there was a little sense of urgency. They would really like to notify parents and students as quickly as possible so they could start their saving money and preparing. And that's why we have, the committee did agree that it ought to be an action item this evening.
Number 3. 3 on the action item.
Thank you so much.
Sounds like a great trip.
We're
And,
very excited.
worthwhile, I think, and educational.
Well, that was our goal.
Now,
So,
so
very
it looks
nice
like you're
packet.
meeting your goal. So,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
you.
I know there's a lot of work ahead of you now. This doesn't come without doing anything, I know. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next 2 items belong to Mr. Martell, 1998-99 budget amendments and 1999-2000 proposed budget. Dave, probably need a minute to get set up.
Sure know how to hold an audience. I missed that. What was that?
You
Nothing, Dave.
you have our undivided
That was
attention.
very hard.
Actually, while that's warming up,
Only those days that we recorded to be here.
I can talk about the 98-99 budget amendment. As you know, we prepare a preliminary budget and update it throughout the year. And at the end of the year, we adjust that budget with the knowledge we have at that time. And so I'll talk about the changes we're going to make now since our update in March. This year, we're starting with a fund balance of $2.15 million. This budget that we're presenting here has excess expenditures of just over $1 million. We do plan to sweep an estimated 2.4% of our budgeted expenditures, which is about $510,000. We base that assumption on past experience. So we feel that we'll probably be using about $497,000 of fund balance this year, giving us with an estimated ending fund balance of just about $1.7 million, which is about 7.8% of expenditures for the year. Just a few items from this budget update that might be of interest. We're booking a Kellogg grant for the diversity, the $50,000 grant that you've already seen before, but they're actually putting in the budget at this point. And we had an increase in our adult basic education grant that we use for English as a second language program, an increase of $53,000 for a total of $89,000 for that program. Now for us, because those are restricted dollars we get from the state, on the normal ESL program budget, we will actually use more of the federal money and use less of the state money, which will just give us more of a carryover. But it is a change to the budget. On the expenditure side, the main difference on expenditures is that a lot of things are going up and down, but the main difference is the copiers that you approved not that long ago of about $50,000. We also, as a footnote, have separation benefits for 7 employees in our budget. That was a number that we carry over from year to year, and it was adequate enough this year to accomplish that goal. In the school services fund, we did increase our revenue budgets across the board, and as we see the program for food service really taking hold, as we have closed campus and an improved program, so we were able to increase some of those budgets. And also, we had an update on our debt fund. As you know, the Durant funds came in 2 different pieces. One was a bond issue that we issued a note to the state municipal bond authority, and the state makes the payments on our behalf, but they still are our bonds. The state aid does come to us, even though it's directed away from us as soon as it's on our books. And so we have recorded the revenue and expenses for paying the first year's debt for the state aid, for the
the Durant bonds. Are there any questions on the 98, 99 budget? Or I put you all in the dark?
No. How much did you say we get on the sweep at the, what's your estimate?
Estimated about 510,000.
510? And that gives us an ending fund balance of about $1.7 million?
1.655 million.
1.655. Boy, great.
20
Mike.
cents.
Thank you.
I know you want to
Okay.
follow up.
No,
see
I
what we
got,
really
my
had.
numbers agree with yours. I'm just seeing if I can figure it the way I understood it. Thank you.
Now, going into our 1999-2000 proposed budget. In the general fund, our remote's not working very well here.
I guess it's empty.
Technology grand.
Is that wireless?
So this could take a long time if I can't get that working. As a summary, we have total revenues of $20,800,000. It's supposed to bounce off the walls, but obviously it's not. Total expenditures of $21,500,000. Which gives us an excess expenditure budget of about $730,000. Now again, we have an estimated favorable budget variance of $520,000, which again is still about 2.4%. Our actual average over the last series of years has been more like 2.6%. So we have an estimated use of fund balance in this budget that we're proposing of about $210,000. The fund balance as an estimated start, as we just mentioned, almost 1.7 million, which would leave us with an estimated fund balance just below 1.5 million at the end of June of the year 2000. And looking at some of our revenue changes, state aid, the assumptions we're using is based on an increase in student numbers of about 36. That's our an increase in our blended count. We expect 2,900 students for our September count in the fall. The foundation grant has been increased. For our state aid bills have been passed by the legislature by $190 this year, which is 3.26% of the foundation. And although that did happen, last year we had a supplemental funding of $51 per student, which was considered one time. So when we take a look at the net increase in our per pupil funding, it's really $139 per student at about 2.37%. Last year, remember, we had a Headley reduction factor, and it was a significant amount last year, and it was a shortage of about $80,000 in our budget. We did have another reduction this year, although it was very small. It was fully contained within the 2 mills that were voted last year to cover the shortage. Now, last year, we had over a mill that was rolled back, and so we went to the public and asked for 2 mills to be restored. And this way, then we won't have to go back every year for very minor ones. If we take a big one like we did last year, potentially we would need to come to the voters again. But this way, we're not coming back every year with small requests. The Family Learning Center, we have a Perkins grant that we use to fund a lot of that operation. The federal funding has changed at the federal level, and that they're no longer directing specific funds to the teen parent program that we run. And so we're losing our $115,000 grant that we received this year. Those monies have been redirected statewide, and unfortunately, we will not get back a pro rata share of what we're giving up.
or we'll be getting a program share. We won't be getting the full amount. The ISD did receive some extra funds, but nowhere near the $115,000. They have agreed to fund $65,000 of their funding towards our teen parent program for next year. And also, we will be reducing expenditures by about $20,000. This does leave us with about a $30,000 increase in net expenditures that is included in the budget. Also, rentals. We do rent school facilities, and we have a major renter that has been in the district for a little over a year. We expect that to not last the full fiscal year, and so we've reported a decrease of about $45,000 in revenue. We'll also see a decrease in expenditures because those revenues cover the cost of our employees that we do have there specifically for their group. So that the resolution that you have in your packet includes a budget of local revenues of $2.5 million. Those local revenues include property taxes that we levy on our non-homestead properties. It gives us state revenues of almost $16 million, federal revenues of just short of $500,000, and then incoming transfers and other transactions, about $1.2 million. A large portion of that is the funding we get for special ed through our county millage when it comes through our ISD. Gives us total revenues of just over $20 million. As you can see, the state portion, as we have to report it based on state rules, is just short of 80%. And then we have a big chunk down here that's local. The next slide here shows that when we actually take a look at how much the state controls of our budget, budget revenues, it's closer to 87% because we've taken out the portion of our foundation allowance that's controlled by the state and taken those out of local revenues and put them in to the foundation and state categoricals, just to show you how much of a percentage of our budget is made up and controlled by the state. On the expenditure side, salaries have been increased by 2% plus increments. That equates for teachers to be about 1.32% in addition to the 2%. We have not settled with all groups at this time, but that's the general increase we had for teachers, and that's what we've included in the budget at this time. This budget also includes an increase in FTEs for our teachers in an effort to maintain class size as we continue to grow at the high school. We've got 2.5 FTEs teachers at the high school as an increase. We also have 2.5 FTEs in special education. One of those is at the high school, so we're actually increasing teaching staff at the high school by 3.5 FTEs. The other one's at Murphy School, and then a half FTE is for speech therapy. On the expenditures side again, we've got salary savings built into our budget of about $100,000 because we have staff retirements. As teachers leave at the top of the scale and we replace them with teachers, most likely newer teachers who are more at the bottom of the scale, we do know that we will save some money in salaries, so we've taken that money into account. And again, as we talked earlier, the district does have $90,000 worth of severance benefits budgeted. The difference between those two, because it looks like they kind of offset each other, is that the severance cost is for the first year when a teacher retires, but the salary savings continue for 12 years, so they get to the top of the scale, although the savings tend to dwindle as they get up to the top of the scale with the salary steps. But there is an ongoing savings when teachers do retire. Also, just for informational purposes, one of the people who did retire was one of our reader so we've budgeted enough money to have a teacher trained for that program. The retirement rate has been set by the state at 11.66%. Right now it's at 10.77%, so it's an increase of almost a full percent. That takes effect in October of 1999. And so we've reflected additional costs of about $117,000 in our budget for that. Healthcare insurance has been a topic of a lot of discussion. Our health insurance and our budget is increased by 9%, which costs us about $157,000. That's the amount the district incurs. Because of the contracts, we do have caps where the employee groups have to pick up the insurance over that amount. And so right now we're seeing an average between 13 and 19% increases in those. And so, but the district portion is at 9%. New batteries, I guess. I don't know. Curriculum updates and upgrades. We continue that as we do from year to year. Language arts will be the main focus, and probably you saw a presentation tonight that we're going to be for materials that will need to be purchased this next year. As an informational item, we had our Durant settlement last year. We talked about the bond issue portion of that, and we're making payments on that through the state. But the state is also required to pay us over 10 years the cash flow, and between the amount we get for our portion of Durant and also what's being funneled through the ISD to us, we get about $49,000 a year. And we budgeted for that, but we haven't specifically identified projects yet that could be charged to those amounts. One possible project that is being discussed is that the need for additional editing equipment for the TV studio. We have summer school programming at all levels this summer coming up. That is an increase. It's about $60,000 to $70,000 to pay for that. It's being paid out of existing general fund budget that was directed towards summer school that we had last year, plus grant funds that are available to be paid with this. And then we have a vast number of other budgets throughout the listing of accounts. Generally, we put no general increase into those salary or supply accounts, purchase services, utilities. But we did allow for a 2% increase in the per student allocation that's given to each budget or each building. They use that budget to pay for their teaching supplies and office supplies. And so we did include the 2% increase in that, but there were no general increases for the rest of the budget, unless there were a specific need that was identified. In capital outlay, you remember last year we reallocated the $110,000 in our budget towards other projects, and this year we've returned those funds to the purchase of buses. We purchased 2 buses a year. We're back on our schedule so that we're not that our buses that are being retired are about 12 to 14 years of service have been taken out of them. So we wanted to make sure we were back on track with that so that the buses weren't getting too old, too expensive to maintain. There is a budget amount to replace the school van, and we'll be looking into that this year with board approval. Obviously, that would be coming back to the board as an approval item anyway, because it would be expensive enough to do with the board, an action item for the board. And we've gone through and looked at, we did a number of projects this year through the capital outlay, through the Durant and Durant-related monies we got from the ISD. And so those were one-time kind of projects, and those those cap outlay budgets will be decreasing from about $500,000 this year to about $250,000 next year. 110 of that, 110,000 of that is for the buses. We will, obviously, if those projects have not been completed, those budgets will be set back up next year after we see our closing of the year numbers. So when we take a look at the resolution that's before you tonight, that we'll be asking you to act on at the next board meeting. Under instruction, basic programs, we have almost $10 million allocated. Added needs, which includes special ed, just over $2 million. Adult and continuing education, just over $1 million. So a total instruction budget of just short of $13 million. Support services, we've got pupil services at just over $800,000. Instructional staff services of $966,000. General administration of just of less than $900,000. School administration of $1.1 million. Business services, including things like maintenance of our buildings, utilities, transportation services, of $3.1 million, giving us total support services of just under $7 million. Community services of $443,000. That's basically our Kids Connection program. Capital outlay, as we talked before, $258,000. Debt service is $124,000. Outgoing transfers, this is for tuition for special ed students that are educated in other districts, and also for ISD itinerant staff that we use their services because it's more cost effective to have somebody from using a portion of a person from the county instead of hiring our own person. And then our operating transfer out that goes to the special revenue fund, which includes our athletic program and also includes our food service program. So a total appropriated budget of $21.5 million. Again, that gives us a pie chart here of how we spend our money. The bulk of our money is spent through instruction and support services that are necessary to make sure instruction is happening. And these are the ways that the state requires us to categorize expenditures. But when we take a look at another way to look at our expenditures by functional categories of total compensation, salaries and benefits, over 82% of our budget is spent on compensating employees. Purchase services is at about 8.5%, supplies at 5.7%. So when we take a look at our biggest expenditure, it's our staff, and then our biggest revenue is control of the state. So those are two main topics that we try to keep track of. So recapping with our fund balance, we have an estimated June 30 fund balance of $1.4 million. Reflects a decrease of an estimated $210,000 from the June 1999 estimated fund balance. Again, we're estimating upon estimates, so we do have some variances that we have to deal with. When we take a look at our favorable budget variance at 2.4%, that gives us approximately $520,000. Take a look at our fund balance by year. We hit a peak at the end of last year as an actual. These numbers here for 98, 99, and 99, 2000 are estimates. We ended last year with about between $2.1 and $2.2 million, and we plan to use about $500,000 of fund balance, and then again for next year a little bit of fund balance. Again, these numbers will change based on what our actual outcomes will be. Our fund balance is a percent of expenses. We're up around 11% right now. At the end of the year, we expect to be just less than 8, and then just less than 7 at the end of 99, 2000. Again, these are estimated budgets. hope to find things and ways to improve our situation so that we're balancing our books, so to speak. We do hope that there's potential for additional state funding. The state school aid fund is doing a little better than previously projected. Whether or not the state actually gives us those funds or not, or holds them for the future, we'll wait to see. We know there's been some activity lately in the legislature. But also, we've got potential long-term impact of the successful building and site sinking fund election. We don't have a whole lot in our budget right now for capital outlay kind of expenditures to do a major rebuild or remodel, to replace a boiler, those kinds of things in our budget. And if this building and site sinking fund does pass, it'll allow us to maintain flexibility with the funds that we direct towards instruction. We also obviously are looking at pupil counts. That's a big portion of our budget. And in the fall, when we make our first budget update, we'll be hoping for a positive count to come out. So now that you're enlightened, if there was any questions or, I guess I should add that we do have, obviously, our school services fund, our special revenue fund, that includes our food service program and our athletic program that are included in our budget that we're presenting. Also, our debt service fund. Those tend to be more straightforward than the general fund, where we have a lot of changes that need to come to your attention. But if there's any questions you've got in the materials you've received, or any comments that you'd like me to discuss?
Jeff?
Just a couple of little ones. That $115,000 grant from the feds, is that something we've had for some time and it's just now being modified, or was that just a one-time?
That's a grant we've had for quite a while, Perkins grant, at least ever since I've been here. The amounts have changed from time to time, and actually this last year we saw a very big increase in those funds from, I think maybe in the 40,000 to 50,000 range up, and then it went up to
115.
Yeah.
But there was a big increase this last year.
So actually, so now the state's going to administer it, or it's being just dispersed in a different way, but it looks like the net amount is coming back to where we were before.
Well, no, we did cut costs by 20,000, and we're basically having to cover another 30,000 with other district funds. We went from 115 down to 65,
right,
which is a $50,000 difference.
Right.
And we cut our budget by only 20, which leaves 30,000 left to be covered by other funding sources. Obviously, Maria and her staff are very good at finding funds for the program. It's a very important program here at the district, and before we go and cut the program because of an interruption in the funding, we've been able to get some guarantees from the ISD, at least for a short period, and we also will be looking for other funding sources to keep the program going at its full level.
Yeah, that helps answer my other question on what would happen to the program. But the retirement rate change, does that only apply to new retirees, or does that apply to all the folks who've ever retired? In other words,
basically, that's a rate that we pay for every dollar of salary that is earned in the district. It's a defined
net permanent increase.
Contribution pension plan. So every year they take a look at where they are actuarially and tell us how much we have to pay for each dollar. So we pay, right now almost 11 cents out of every dollar for every dollar we spend in salaries.
Okay. So that's a permanent increase to our expense.
Well, it is permanent, other than, you know,
Till
it
they
does
change
vary
it
from
again.
year to
Next
year.
year.
Yeah, right. Then,
It used to be, what, over 13%, wasn't it?
Used to actually be over 15%.
Over 15%, and then
Then it dropped down because they
Right.
they
revalued the whole.
revalued the portfolio. Right.
But a piece of that retirement is healthcare for retirees, and it's a cash basis. It's not a pre-funded item, so as the cost of healthcare goes up, and as more retirees are out there, then we're gonna see those costs continue to rise.
I guess,
still
one
have
last
the
question.
floor.
Who do we share this? You mentioned a couple times we turn these reports in. Does this go to the Department of Education? Are they the ones we share this information with?
I didn't catch the first
Well,
part.
the budget, you said we share this with, or we give these reports to. Who is
You.
it that we give them to?
Well, and we share these reports with you.
Oh, I was thinking that we were obligated by the state to send budget reports in. So I
Well,
guess I
we
misunderstood
do,
what you're saying.
As part of our audit, we do have our budget reviewed as part of how we did budget to actual.
Mhm.
That's included. So whatever you pass as a budget is
Okay.
included in our financial report, and those reports are required at the
Okay.
Department of
So-
Education.
So when you're saying, well, we're required to do this, you're saying we're required by the.
Well, yes,
It's a
we do
means of
have
accounting.
a manual where the state tells us exactly how to categorize expenditures.
Right,
So when I talk about some of those functional categories,
okay,
the state tells us that we have to put this kind of expenditure in instruction,
okay.
this kind of expenditure in support services, when a lot of times they're very directly related. And so we try to look at support services and our instruction more together than apart. But we kind of show it that way, and we budget for it that way because the state requires it.
There's an accounting requirement imposed on us, not that we have to turn around and give these reports to somebody and they look over them and say, well, you didn't do it that way. That comes out of the audit report in the spring.
Yes, but we also, we transmit all of our financial data to the state, and they do compare us with other districts.
Oh.
That's the kind of information they use to put out their annual report. It compares per student, per pupil funding, or expenditures, and compares us to other school districts, or even within our own school district with different buildings.
Okay, I guess that was part of why I was asking, because we transmit that. Do they care what kind of a format it's in? Do we do this by paper? Do we do it electronically? Do we, how does that happen?
It varies depending on what the state wants that particular year. Right now, we take our report and physically key it onto a system that ties in directly to the state. So, but it's in such a summary form that it doesn't take a lot of time for us to do that.
Okay, thanks.
I've got one question, because I think I either misheard something or something, but total revenues in 99-2000. What? I thought I heard 20,300,000 and some thousand dollars.
Oh, I can't remember saying that.
And this says 20,826 on our resolution that we'll adopt next time.
Yeah, it could have been a key punch error on the form I
On the-
did.
on the
So when I
screen.
entered it in, it's
Okay.
possible that I just misquoted that, but
it is
286 as I'm looking at some of the detail.
20,826 is the right number.
Yes.
Okay, so I heard you right. Okay, thank you.
And I misspoke, I apologize.
There, see, I just saved you $500,000. Any other questions, comments?
Just for the public, we did have a workshop on this.
Yes, we did. Our last board meeting was a work session where we went through the detail of what Dave presented tonight, and a lot of the background information on why some things are costing what they're costing this next year. And the board has previously discussed additional staff in order to achieve some goals that the district has, and staffing and keeping our class sizes lower, and teaming at the middle school, and all these kinds of things mean dollars and cents. And you've done a great job again, Dave, trying to bring all this together and make some sense out of it, and present it to the board and to the administration so that it's understandable. And we appreciate that very much. Okay, We'll vote on these things next time, next meeting. What, really? Well, Bev was,
Carry on.
yeah, we'll carry on.
I was gonna wing it.
And our last discussion item was board policy revisions, section 8,000. And in Kathy's absence, I'll call on Bev to talk a little bit about this section, which is students.
And Jeff's on the committee, and Bob and Jean were there, and I figured that they can help out with things that I have not thought of. This was a big section, and it took us several meetings to really get through the whole thing, because there were a lot of real important things to talk about. It's a kind of a sign of our times that some of the highlights were things like adding sections on serious acts of violence and terrorist threats and so forth were all added in. There were things deleted because they were either in other sections or they just were not necessary. So if anybody's, has any questions on any of those, they should bring them up. But one item that I did want to mention is that we have the 8230s tobacco products, that we're not going to have any tobacco products at school sponsored events or in the school grounds. There won't be a designated area. There will be signs saying that there is no tobacco products or smoke-free school district. And that will be at all events too. So that will be a little bit of a difference. I was trying to remember which things really caused the most discussion. I guess probably one of the things that caused a lot of discussion for us was 8730, which I'm sure will be clear to everyone when you see that it's publications put out by the school district. We wanted to make sure that we complied with the law, as well as did what we felt as a school district was the right thing to do. And so there's some changes there.
The main issue there is the principal still has some oversight of those publications.
Yeah, same, the way we had before, we just tried to make it a little bit more clear. And I'm not sure if there was really, Jeff, do you remember if there was anything else that was really a standout that we would want to mention? Did anybody reading through it have anything? Jean?
No, I think you did a nice job.
Student records is a big section we spent a lot of time on.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think there's any big change there, but
Cleaned it up a little bit.
Yeah.
actually the section is much thinner than it was, so we've deleted
Yep.
a lot more than we've added.
That's just, that'd be one of the more significant things that I recall, is that much of what was in there has been really thinned out to
Yep.
be much more clear and much more relevant to what our real practice is.
And make it more useful.
Right.
As large as it is, it was definitely a hard section to use.
Well, read through it, because we'll be voting on it next time, and this is probably certainly one of the more important sections, because it deals with students. Okay, thank you, Bev. Appreciate it. Okay, next item, board reports, finance and facilities.
We didn't meet Charlie.
We haven't met, okay. Policy and personnel committee.
We met.
You have met.
We met and we met. We actually, we finished. So that was
The last section
big
is
celebration, 9,000.
9,000, and we'll see that
Is it the next meeting, right?
Next meeting,
Probably the smallest section we have.
okay.
Well, you didn't have to say that, because it really sounded impressive that we
Yeah.
managed to
Well,
get all that done.
that's right.
Fortunately, it was small and we got it done.
So we'll discuss that next time and then vote that in our first meeting in July.
And that, we already reported earlier that the choir trip was presented at that meeting also.
Right, okay. Well, congratulations, committee. You accomplished a big task. Items from the board. Mr. Stoney, you have anything? want to call on you special, actually, we passed you up.
Well, and I didn't have anything
Okay.
this time. Although I just did want to just make a comment about Mr. Devine and all of his, congratulations, he's been at a number of things and shown off his talents as a conductor and as a swimmer and so forth, so. But I have nothing special to report, thank you.
Bev?
I just wanted to comment on how wonderful graduation went, and I'm sure the fact that the day was
Both
so
of them.
hot, yes, for the high school graduation, the fact that the day was so hot, I received so many comments, more comments than usual from people in the community about how thrilled they are to be at the Breslin Center.
And his air
How we
conditioning.
must never change that, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. And as Ron pointed out, the Meridian High School graduation, again, was just a real highlight for us. And I really enjoy going to those because it's a smaller graduation and it's more personal because more kids are able to speak. But that also brings back to the high school graduation. I really think our speakers did, the student speakers did one of the most outstanding jobs I've heard. And it just really was a highlight for me as a board member.
Yeah, I thought the Friendses were a real hit.
Yes, that was a highlight.
Thank you. It was for us too, a real privilege to do it together.
My only comment is, besides graduations, were always a pleasure. I enjoy them so much. It's just the highlight of my year. But I thought the staff retirement reception was excellent. You heard some interesting stories about some of the adventures our staff have been through over the years, and it was very nicely done, and a very nice turnout too. And some retirees came back and saluted their colleagues, so it went very well, and it's a nice way to exit out, I guess. So, very good. Okay, where are we? We're to action items. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 action items. I've pulled item 4. So we've got 7 items left to.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. The items are approval of minutes for May 24th special board meeting. That was our work session on the budget. Board policy revision, section 7,000, which will be 6,000 in the new policy manual. Out-of-state field trip request that we heard on tonight, the choir going to New York City. Approval of the administrative contract for Sharon Jones, Assistant Superintendent. Summer tax collection certification, everything everybody wanted to know about it. Tuition acceptance request at the, couple different grades in Hazlet, and a tuition acceptance request of Meridian High School students. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0, 5-0, Cheryl. 5-0. Announcements. Our next meeting will be held June 28th at 7 o'clock, right here in Hazlet. And that'll be our last meeting of this school year. And first meeting in July will be our reorganization meeting. So, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved and supported. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Opposed? We're going to adjourn. You're gone?
I'm gone.
You're gone?
For which meeting?
You're going to?
No, I'll be here.